Okay, welcome to the second part of the two-part series, working with Excel 2010, working with simple charts now. In this part, we'll be working with a 2D column chart along with a pie chart, and we're going to be modifying those charts. Okay, first thing I want to do is I want to select my range to represent my column chart. So I'm going to select A2 through E10. I'm going to select this range. I'm going to go to my Insert tab, come to Charts Group, and click Column. I'm going to choose this clustered column right here, the 2D. And when I do, my chart appears. Well, before I do anything at all, I want to move this chart. I want to move the top left corner right here to be in the top left corner of cell A13. So I'm going to click and drag and drop this thing right about there. And then before I continue on at all, I'm going to stretch this out so I can see it better. I'm going to grab the bottom right corner and drag it out to the right edge of column F and down to 31. That makes it a little bit better to read. Now, as I look at my chart, I can see that it's a little obscured. Okay, I can see that I have these long green lines, and if I look closely, what do the green lines represent? The green lines represent the quarter totals. Well, if I remind myself, I never want to have totals in a column chart like this because of these results. So the way I fix that is not by deleting it or anything like that. I'm going to come up here and see what data is represented in this chart, and I'm going to see that my totals here, my quarter totals, is also included. So I'm going to grab this bottom right corner here, click and drag to the left, and it's a simple modification. I can see that now I have more accurate information. If I look at my chart here, I can see that I have different axes along the bottom here. This is called my category axis, and it tells me in my screen tip, horizontal category axis. Over here is my category labels, okay, or it's called a legend also. Okay, our next step will be to modify this chart to be a little more colorful and inviting to read. So the way we do that is the first thing I want to do is come up and to my Design tab, and you'll notice that when my chart is selected, I have Chart Tools and 3 separate tabs available in there. If I deselect it, that'll go away. So I have to have my chart selected. I'm going to go to my Types and click Change Chart Type. When I choose this, I have different charts to choose from. The one I want to choose is this 3D column chart. When I click this and click OK, it changes it up. Now my next step will be to change the layout of this chart. What I want to do is I want to end up with a chart title, and I want to end up with a axis title right down here. So the way I do that, I'm going to come to my chart layouts, click my More button, and I want to change it to layout 9. When I click this, it includes my chart title. I have a axis title and an axis title over here. Okay. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to remove this one, so because I won't need that. This is pretty self-explanatory. So the way I do that is I just click on it one time and then I press delete on my keyboard, and that goes away. Next, I want to change the chart title. I'll click it one time, and I can click on my formula bar here. Some people like to click in the formula bar and type it in. Quite honestly, I just assume click to select the title, the text in there, and type in my title, which will be projected first quarter revenue. When I'm done typing my title, I'm not going to press enter. If I press enter, it gives me another line of text that I can write. I don't want to do that. To get out of it, I'm going to simply click my chart, and now my title's in there. When I finish with that, I also want to add an axis title down here. Again, I'm going to click it once to select it, and then click to add the text. Then I'm going to type in revenue sources. And again, I'm going to click my chart just to deselect that, and now my text is entered in there. Now after I look at it closely, I can see that this is a little small to read, so I'm going to click it one time, and then I'm going to come up to my Home tab and change that font size. I'm going to change it to 12. It's a little bit larger now. My next step will be to remove this legend. Not necessarily remove it, but I want to move this to above my chart so where it'll appear below my title. The way I do that is I'm going to come to my Layout tab. I'm going to go to my Labels group, and here's my Legend button. I'm going to click this and choose Show Legend at Top. And now my legend is at the top and my data is spread out a little bit better. My next step will be to change the style of my chart a little bit. The way I change the style is I'm going to come to my Design tab, go to my Chart Styles, and quite honestly, I'm going to click the More button. Quite honestly, the chart style that I most often use is Style 26 here. If I click Style 26, as you can see, it gives it some depth and a little more richness to the chart. When I'm finished with that, I need to add in some vertical grid lines in the back here. Right now, the only thing that appears are horizontal grid lines. As you can see, that's what these lines are here. Horizontal grid lines. The way I add those is I'm going to come to my Layout tab. I'm going to come to my Grid Lines. I'm going to click my Grid Lines button, and I'm going to come to my vertical grid lines. The ones I want to choose are the major grid lines. When I click this, it'll appear in my chart. Okay, my next chart I want to create is going to be representing the titles of what revenues are and the quarterly sales, or the quarterly totals. So I'm going to select this range A3 through A10. And then also I want to select a non-adjacent selection. Again, I'm going to press my Control key and I'm going to select E3 through E10. Once I have that range selected, I'm going to go to my Insert tab. I'm going to go to my Pie in my Charts group, and I'm going to choose a 3D pie. So I'm going to click this 3D pie here, and it appears. Now once this thing selects, once this chart comes up, I'm going to move the chart. I want it to be on a separate worksheet of its own. So I'm going to click Move Chart, and then I have my Move Chart dialog box that comes up. I'm going to choose New Sheet, and I'm going to call this sheet Revenue Chart. Click OK, and now here it is. Okay, my first step, once I get my chart to this area, is I want to modify this so that my titles appear inside their respective slice of the pie. For example, income tax and water will appear in its own slice. Sales tax will appear. It's easier to read that way. This way is a little difficult because you have to read through it non-tax revenue, and it may confuse people as to what color is that and so on and so forth. And quite honestly, if you print this on a black and white printer, you'll never know. So let's change the layout of this. The layout we want to choose is going to be Layout 5 right here. So if I click this, it also gives me my chart title, and here are my titles of the revenue. So now I want to change my chart title. Again, I'm going to select inside there. I'm going to call this Aspen Falls Projected First Quarter Revenue. When I'm finished, I'm going to click outside of it, and there's my chart title. My next step will be to modify the way in which my labels here appear. The way I do that is I'm going to go to my Layout tab. I'm going to come over to my Labels group and click Data Labels, and then choose More Data Label Options. I'm going to have my dialog box that appears here, and what I want to do here under Label Options, I want to choose to make sure that I have percentage. I want to have the percentages here, and I want to choose Show Leader Lines off, and I want to make sure my category name is on. After that, I want to position them inside the pie chart and at the end. Okay, if it's outside end, they'll appear outside here, which isn't very descriptive. And I don't want to have centered. That puts it closer to the center of the pie. So inside end is most appropriate for what I want to do. After I'm done doing that, I'm going to come to my number group, I should say number tab, and I want to make sure that this is a percentage. And as you can see, it is a percentage, but it has 2 decimal places. I want to change that decimal place to 1. And then press tab, and I can see the change happened automatically. When I'm finished, I'm going to click close. And then as I look at my labels here, I can see that they're a little bit thin, probably hard to read if I print it out. So I want to make them a little bolder and better read. The way I do that is just making sure they're selected. I can see they're all selected right now. I'm going to go to my Home tab and turn my bold on and change the font size to 12. It makes it a little larger and easier to read. When I'm done, I'm going to click outside my worksheet, and there it is. Now, before I continue on, I want to put a footer on my worksheet here. This worksheet is a chart, for that matter. Now, I'm going to show you a method here that may be a little unfamiliar to you, but this is what it looks like when you're using a footer for a chart worksheet. We're going to come up to our Insert tab. We're going to go over to our text group and click Header and Footer. And this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to click Custom Footer here. And when I do, it appears on my left side. I'll remind myself that footers for Excel appear in left, center, and right sections. Same thing with the header. So on my left side, I want my file name. So I'm going to click here, my file name. And on the right hand side, I want to put in the current date. Here's my insert date. And that's a code. It doesn't look like it is, but it's actually a date. I'm going to click OK. And here's my preview. There's the date. And here's the title of my worksheet. I should say my workbook. I'm going to click OK. It doesn't appear right here, but it is actually there. If I go to my print preview, I can see that it's there now. There's my file name. There's my current date. Okay. Now my next step is to modify the shape of my pie chart here. The way I do that is I click any part of the edge here, and I can see that with my sizing handles here, 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 I can see that the entire chart is selected. From here, I'm going to click on my Format tab, and I'm going to come to my Shape Styles group and click Shape Effects. From there, I'm going to come down to Bevel, and I'm going to go to 3D Options. Because I want to make this kind of thin and customized, I'm going to change the beveling, the top and bottom bevel. I'm going to click my drop down here, and I want to make it a circle, and I want to change the bottom to a circle as well. And you can see that it modified it a little bit. You can see a little contour there. Well, I want to make a dramatic contour, so I'm going to select the width here and change that to 512. Press Tab, change this to 512 as well. Tab, it's 512 all the way around. Now, by doing that, it gives us this very unique look. From here, I want to come down to my material, drop down here. I want to change it from the warm matte and change it to plastic. When I change it to plastic, it gives it a little bit of a feel to it. Okay. When I'm finished with that, I'm going to click Close, and then also give it some additional depth by coming back to my Shape Effects, go to Shadow, and I want to apply a shadow here under Perspectives. I want it to be below. So I click this, and it gives it a shadow below it. Now from here, when it comes to a pie chart, you always want to have the thinner slices a little more centered here at the bottom. So we're going to move the utility text to right here. The way we do that is to click on the Layout tab. Under the Background group, I'm going to click 3D Rotation. When I click that, here's my rotations. I'm going to change this X-axis. As I click up, it starts to rotate it. Now if I like to, I can click inside here and just change it to 55, and that will make it a little more appropriately placed. Not just this one, but all these, so they're a little more vertically spaced. When I'm done with that, I'm going to click the Close button, And then from here, I'm going to take notice that in my current selection, I have chart area selected. Okay, that means that my chart is selected and none of its elements are selected. Well, that's what I want. From here, I want to give it a bit of a feel to the actual page here. So I'm going to go to my Format tab, my Shape Effects, and change my bevel to a convex. And when I do that, you can see that it gives it a bit of a chiseled look to the edges here. Okay, my next step is I want to give it a bit of a color to the actual page. The way I do that is I'm going to come over to my current selection here. I can see that chart is still selected. I want to go to Format Selection. When I click that, it gives me my Format Chart Area dialog box. In the fill, I want to change it to a solid color. Well, blue is not what I really want, so I'm going to click this drop down. I want to give it a light, warm feel, so I'm going to choose this gold accent to lighter 60. When I click that, it gives it a nice contrast between the page and the chart itself. When I'm done, I'm going to click close. Now, to give this chart some additional character, I can accentuate a particular slice of this pie and blow it out. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click the chart itself one time, and when I do, I can see my chart selected. If I click Utility Tax one more time, I can see that only that slice is selected. When I have that slice selected, my cursor's on it, changes into a 4-pointing arrow. I can click and drag that down a little bit, and it blows that out a little. So now that's accentuated. And for that matter, let's say I want to change the color of this. There's a couple ways of changing the color. The way I like to use is simply come up to my shape styles, select Shape Fill, and let's change this to a brown accent 40. It gives it a little bit of a contrast there. It's blown out a little bit. It looks accentuated. Now from there, I want to drag my title or my label for this slice out. The way I do that is I click on it one time, all of them are selected. I click it on one more time, and now only this one label is selected. The way I move it is by putting my cursor right on the border, click and drag it down, boop, right there. From here, let's say we decide to change this color of brown for whatever the reason. I click it one time, they're all selected. I click it one more time, I choose only that slice. With that slice, the water slice selected, come to my Shape Fill color, and let's change this to indigo lighter 40. And now that gives it a little bit of better feel to the chart. Now once this is done, let's say we want to have some additional notes down here. If I want to type some notes down here to be a little more descriptive of the chart when I hand it out. Well, the way we do that is to go to our Layout tab, and we're going to come over to our Insert group and click Text Box. When I do click Text Box, I get this little text box indicator icon. So I'm going to click and drag, and let's say I wanted to have about that much of text. And I click and drag, and it opens up my text box, and let's type in some text here. The text we want to add in here will be utility taxes have decreased and should no longer be a burden on the taxpayer. So let's type that in. When I'm done typing that, I'll notice that I want to change the font a little bit. I want to increase the font size. The way I do that is by clicking the border of this text box one time, and then it changes the solid line, which means that whatever I change up here will apply to this. So let's come up and change this font size to 12. It makes it a little bit larger, a little bit better to read. From there, let's say I want to make sure that it's only on 2 lines. I simply increase one of the sides, and it makes that 2 lines. When I'm done formatting this worksheet, this particular chart, I'm going to go back to the Revenue tab here, And I want to put in a little bonus added feature to this, which is some word art. I want to put some word art up here that's going to say Aspen Falls. The way I do that is I want to add 5 lines, 5 rows I should say, above this area. The way I add 5 rows all at once is to select 5 rows. So I'm going to select 1 through 5. When I have those all selected, I'm going to come to my cells group and click Insert. I want to insert sheet rows. When I do, there are my 5 blank rows. Pretty simple, huh? My next step is to insert some word art. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab. I'm going to come to my text group, click Word Art, and this particular word art I want to choose is going to be the Gradient Fill Aqua Accent one. From here, it appears, and I simply start typing Aspen Falls. Now, when I'm done, I'm going to click on the border here, drag it up to just about center above my worksheet here. And then from there, I want to modify the style a little bit. Now, I'll notice that this particular word art, when I have it selected, I get a new tab, Drawing Tools and Format tab. When it's not selected, it goes away. So the way I make sure I have that selected is making sure that I have my word art selected. From here, I'm going to go to my word art styles and come to text effects. The first effect I want to apply is going to be a shadow. I'm going to come to my shadow, and then the one I want to choose is going to be an outer shadow. There's many shadows to choose from. If I scroll over these, it gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. The one I think I want to choose is the offset bottom. Gives it a little bit of depth and richness. Next, I want to apply some bevel effect. So again, I'm going to come to the text effects, go to my bevels, and I'm going to choose the convex. It's this one right here. Gives it a little bit of substance to it. I'm going to click to deselect it, and then I'm ready to save my data, save this worksheet. So in order to save this, I'm going to click on my File, Save As, and I save the document. When I'm finished saving the document, I will notice that in my title bar it tells me the name of my file. I simply added my first and last name to the name of the file itself. From here, I want to add a footer which will contain my file name and the current date. I'm going to go to my Insert tab, Text Group, click on Header and Footer. From here, I'm going to click on the Go to Footer button. Okay, I'm going to click in the left side of my footer. I want to put in my file name, so I'm going to come up here to my file name. And I'm going to click on the right-hand side and click on Current Date. When I'm finished with that, I'm going to click one of the cells up here. It's cell C38. It takes me out of my footer area. And before I do anything else, I'm going to come down to my Views button and click on Normal View. From here, I just simply scroll up to see my data again. Now, the next step is to print my document. Now, I'm not going to actually print anything. I'm going to go through some steps with you. Now, before I print, this is a rule that is a golden rule to remember. Before printing, always print preview. So let's print preview this before we do anything else. I can see that this is my document. I have my footer in here, my current date, and I'll notice that it's not quite centered on my page. So I want to center this before I do anything else. So in order to do that, from this view in 2010, I'm going to click on Page Setup. Here's my dialog box that appears. What I want to do is I want to go to my Margins tab and change this to horizontally. Now before I do anything else, I want to come back to my page and make sure that it all fits to one page. There's no chance of it looking like it's going to go off one page, but it's nice to choose this first. And click OK, and then I can see that my data is now centered on my page. Now one other thing to notice is that if I look here, I only have one of one, which is just my worksheet, but I want to print out my other chart as well at the same time. Well, in order to do that, I simply come over here to Print Active Sheets, and click this drop down and choose Print Entire Workbook. Now I'll have one of two. This shows me both my pie chart. And if I come over here to page 2, there's my worksheet. So now I would be ready to print the entire document. Okay, thanks for watching, and that will conclude this two-part series of working with Excel 2010. Thank you, and don't forget to comment.